Hola, soy Mónica Conesa y estás mirando Eclectic Arts Media.
Apparently, I do darkness and death really well, so I don't tell happy stories yet.
When I did the vocals for the chorus of the Phantom of the Opera.
A lot of times, if you're like in the pit as a 410 person, that is not fun. Okay.
Hi, my name is Calder Schilling, and I'm playing Sherlock Holmes.
Hello, I'm Nate Tenenbaum playing Watson.
And you're watching Eclectic Arts Media.
Someone was just leaving the bar with a beer, and then there was this opening, and I just found myself climbing onto the bar.
Can you let us do that? Like, absolutely not.
You know, it feels a little bit more like home when you're on tour and stuff.
Aloha, I'm Jake Shimobukuro, and you're watching Eclectic Arts Media.
But I thought, yeah, maybe let's give it a go.
They were so badass and so cool.
I like to make cosplay and play games and watch cool shows and stuff.
Hi guys, I'm Jillian Summers, and you are watching Eclectic Arts Media.
It weighs probably twice as much as I do.
And the moment I stepped into the ring, I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
24 years I've been wearing school girl uniform.
I'll pay money for this song. You know, this is a great, like, I want this song.
Hi, how are you?
For some reason, we know the UK guys.
Get out of yourself, girl. Go approach these people, say hello. And every time I do, it's a big embarrassment and a fuck up.
Mark, that was so sweet. Hello.
Hey, I'm Jennifer Page, and you're watching Eclectic Arts Media.
And it's a perfect time to let it all unwind, to spill out all your pieces and leave them all behind.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts Media, based here in Seattle, Washington. And thank you so much for joining me on this Friday, Black Friday, the 29th of November, 2024. And before we get to today's interview, I'd like to thank Selena Ivy for joining me about 2 weeks ago. It's great having her come back to the virtual studio. And I can let people know right now that we're looking to try to do another interview that will be a new series in December. The ball's in my court. I actually have to figure out exactly what we're going to be doing in a format and topics and some things of that nature. But she always has a strong following that joins us when we go live. So we thought we should try doing a recurring series once a month. So I'm looking forward to that. And I have at least 3 other live streams that are going to be scheduled for December. My own personal schedule is changing drastically starting Monday. So my availability is no longer what it once was. But we'll find time either in the evenings or on the weekends or wherever we can, wherever we can find time. But if this is your first time joining me on my YouTube channel, if you could do me a huge favor and please hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. And if you're over on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there, that would be great. That's where I started all this virtual work back in May of 2020. And if you'd like to know what I have coming up specifically, I post everything first on my Instagram account, which is Eclectic Arts Media, one word. And some of that information migrates over to other social media platforms. And if you're really feeling generous with a big Black Friday today and Small Business Saturday tomorrow and the season of giving, this streaming service costs me money every month. And so any kind of donation or tip is greatly appreciated. Through PayPal or Venmo. There's a link directly in the YouTube description of every video that I put up, at least in terms of the live streams. It's only if you're in a position to do so, but it greatly helps me keep this thing rolling along. I'm not rich by any means. Anyone who knows me in real life knows that for sure. I'm rich in other areas, but definitely not monetarily. But again, only if you're in a position to do so. And so, yeah, it's great to be back here. It's crazy to think. I hope you had a really nice Turkey Day yesterday for those in the U.S. And now we're like officially into full-blown holiday mode. I'm going to be going to an event tonight, so I'll get to be around in the hustle and bustle in Seattle and see all the lights and the people and everything else that's going on over this 4-day weekend for many. If you're out there working in the service industry or hospitality or first responders or things of that nature, my hat's off to you. I used to be at that industry, not directly front-facing the public, but I was working for a company that did do that. And this time of year is nuts for them. So a little grace goes a long way, a little patience. If you're out there as a shopper, as a customer, and hopefully you can just kind of try to end this year with a bang before we move into 2025. But this interview, as I was mentioning to my guest pre-show, is something really special to me. It's very rare. I don't really know if I've had this where I've done an interview with somebody in person many years ago, and then now we're here in the virtual world doing a follow-up interview many, many years later. So this is going to be fun for both of us, I hope. And here we go. My guest today is a talented, multifaceted artist. She has written about her personal journey over the last 10 years, culminating in her debut album, Out of the Dark, which just came out last week. I first interviewed her in 2017, so it is a special treat to interview her again in 2024. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Media virtual studio, Miss MAIAH WYNNE.
Hi.
Hi, MAIAH. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Again, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's great to catch up and go over the 6 years it's been or what have you since I last talked with you.
Crazy. Time goes by so fast. It's crazy. Time is weird.
It is. I mean, I start flashing back. So for those that are watching, and I forgot to mention, if you're watching us on YouTube or on Twitch and you want to ask MAIAH a question, you can put it in through the chat, and it almost instantly I'll see it on my end, and I'll make sure to fold it into the conversation. That I saw you at the Fremont Abbey perform.
Yeah.
And I saw you perform in 2018 in Edmonds, where I used to live, in their summer concert series that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I see you. This is one of the best things about social media, is that I can see what you've been doing and up to, and I'm like, wow, she's just like going like this. This is like, but we're definitely here to talk about your debut album. That's the big thrust of why we're here, and we'll try to get to some other things if we can. But it's a long journey. It's a long journey of these songs and your own personal things, and it's got to be very, I would think, cathartic to finally have this out.
It is. Especially this album. It's so close to my heart. It's these songs are very personal, and they reflect such a long period of my life. You know, some of these songs I wrote when I was 16 years old, and then other ones I wrote pretty recently. And so it kind of, they're little pieces over the course of 10 years, and a very, very important time in my life, but also a very challenging time in my life. And so this album, it's very cathartic to release it, and it's very nice to finally feel like I'm kind of letting some of that stuff go too.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking back to when I first met you. I believe "Sleep" was the song or the single that was out at the time. So I'm like, when I look at the album, I'm like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, a slightly newer version of it too. This is the album version of "Sleep," so it's kind of nice to revisit that. And I redid some of the I think I redid all of the vocals. I remixed it, added some little effects here and there. So it's kind of a different version than the one that you probably heard all those years ago, which is crazy.
That's kind of cool, though. I like that. I'm sure our fans as well like when they can hear something years ago, and they kind of see how maybe a new version has been changed or repurposed or whatever you want to call it. I know for myself, I love having all the different versions of certain songs from different artists and kind of see how it's just changed over the years. But I think one thing for maybe the fans out there that are new to you, with this particular album, I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you did everything that went into this album was not just the music. I mean, it's like the packaging, that everything was this is your thing to the world. Or were there some people involved that also kind of helped bring this to life?
There were a lot of people involved in this record. I mean, a lot of it, it's definitely my baby, and I've, put so much of my own work into it, but there was a lot of really talented people who worked on it. I have a long list of credits for each song. Each track had other musicians adding either drums or extra guitars or strings. And then I had a very talented mix engineer, Jim Roach, who mixed the whole record, and he also co-produced some of the tracks. And then Dave Cooley mastered the record. Same with the graphic design. We did underwater photos, and then I Becca Bjork did these sort of fantasy edits and made my wings look extra cool. And then I did some extra graphic design, and this other artist, Shazman, helped with some of that too. So it's like everything was a very collaborative effort. Same with the music videos. There's so many people, friends, and talented artists that helped to kind of put all of the pieces together. You know, like I had this core, and then all of these artists kind of made it into this, you know, which I'm very, very happy about.
And I'm guessing some of those talented artists that work with you are people that you kind of got to know along the years along this journey.
Yes.
So that's got to make you feel good.
Yeah, it really does. And you know, I had some really, really amazing talent on this record, from longtime collaborators like Brooksburg, who added guitars to almost all of the tracks on the song, and I've been playing with him for I think around the same time that I met you. I started playing with Brooks, and so we've been performing together. He's become one of my closest friends. It's so nice to have him on the record, and he's very, very talented. And then I also have, you know, Alex Lifeson, who played some guitars on, I think, on 5 of the tracks, and we're in another group together called Envy of None. But it was so nice to have him play on some of my songs too, and he's just so gracious and kind to lend his talent and time to my little album, which made me so happy. And then incredible strings players, people from Portland Cello Project that I've collaborated with over the years, Bethany Joyce, who I've been playing with for I think 10 years now, since I was 16. And yeah, just some really incredible artists and musicians and drummers, and Tyrone Hendricks, who's also part of Portland Cello Project, played some drums, and Lee Hauser. I don't know, I could go on and on. There's so many talented artists, but I feel very, very grateful.
Well, I think that's also a reflection of you, that when you're first encountering these artists and they continue to want to work with you and create art with you, and here you are, you know, 10 years in some cases, that they're still there. That they love what you're doing, they want to be a part of it, and they can do anything they can just to help you further along your, you know, your ideas and your artistry.
Yeah, I feel very grateful. Honestly, like I don't know if other musicians feel this way, but it's a kind of a very isolating career, because you don't have a regular 9 to 5. You're not going in and meeting the same people every day, but the people who become your kind of coworkers are your collaborators. And so, you know, my little circle of friends are the people that I've been making music with for the last 10 years. And other than that, I'm just in my little cave. So I'm very, very grateful for my collaborators and friends.
Yeah, and I met Brooks both times when I saw you play back in 2017, 2018, and we're still connected through social media. We had something else in common outside of music and everything that I remember we talked about in person. And yeah, you kind of find out, as I've been doing these, especially with these live streams during the pandemic, about finding your tribe and the people that are like-minded and supportive. And you kind of like, once you find those people, it feels so good, because you know you can relax, and if you happen to stumble, someone's there who's going to completely understand what you're going through, and they're going to try to find a way to kind of lift you back up and get you back on the path you're going. And then the folks that maybe aren't like that, you just let them go by the wayside. I always talk about trying to remove toxic people out of my life, and I still try to do that every now and then, but the group that I have is pretty damn good. So I'm really, really grateful for them. So as of yesterday, it's one of those things I started thinking about, you know, all the people I come across and who's been really great to me and helped me out. And I don't ever want to take them for granted. And sometimes it's easy to do it, especially if you get all hustle bustle and you're trying to grind on things. And it's like, oh yeah, don't forget that there's some really good people over here that could also use your time, instead of hoping maybe the grass is greener on the other side. And you know, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, it's so true though. I think you really cultivate lifelong connections, and if you water those plants, so to speak, you know, they will grow, and you never know the kinds of things you'll be creating with that same person, you know, 10 years from now. And you know, I just feel so grateful for the way that I've been able to grow in those connections and friendships. And yeah, it's easy to get distracted by the things that you want, and like all of these other shiny things out there, especially in the industry. But I think those people that you connect with early on, you know, they end up being sometimes the most important, relationships that you have in your career. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what you said. From my end of things, I can give you a good example that there was a communication director at a specific local theater who then moved to a different local theater. And now he's at another local theater. But because we had such a good relationship from the first theater, it's like anytime I need something, he's like, "Oh yeah, Mark, no problem. You want to interview so and so? You want to come, watch the show?" And it's so easy for me to just get a hold of him, and he does that. But then again, I don't want to take it for granted that this is these are like $100 tickets and things of that nature, but it's kind of cool. And sometimes people will say to me, like if they're going to meet me, like my friends tonight, they're meeting me, I might run into somebody and they're like, "Mark, you know everybody." And I don't know everybody, but over the course, just like yourself, over the course of years, you build and you kind of foster these relationships with the people that you really want around you, and vice versa. If I can ever do anything for them, then I do. And we're kind of this like long distance example.
Yeah, exactly.
Of it. I've still been supportive. I've just been over here on the sidelines.
Which is awesome. And it's so nice to be reconnecting after all these years. It's kind of crazy. Like, because at the same time, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but then it really has been like a long time.
Yeah, no, I have the same feeling because I remember trying to, I think we went upstairs in the Abbey to do that interview. And then, as I'm looking at you right now, I'm kind of like, well, I remember you were sitting here and I had the light over here. And
Yeah.
I was using a piece of equipment that I think I still have around here somewhere to do that interview with.
I know everything's changed so much.
Yeah, and like you were mentioning, some of the other talented people that you work with. When I saw you in 2018, you had a cellist with you. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, I think that was Lauren McShane. She's also on the album, and she's based in Seattle. She's fantastic. Also part of the Portland Cello Project. And yeah, I do remember that was a really cool show. It's like a singer-songwriter, like songwriters in the round thing. There's like 4 different songwriters there, and it was really cool.
Yeah, and I remember with I guess at that time it would have been like my iPhone 5S. I recorded a song from that show, so it's sitting on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I do remember that. I think it was Sleep, actually.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was Sleep.
That's funny.
So it's cool that again, all these years later, that these, albeit it's a different version of Sleep, but that you have this debut album, this collection of 11 songs that are out. And I'm kind of curious, since you have been working on your career for so long, were there certain songs that didn't make the album because they just didn't quite fit, the theme and everything?
So many. I narrowed it down to about 20 songs, and originally the album was going to be very long, and it was going to be a 20-song album. And then as I was looking at it, other people had told me that they felt like it was 2 albums, and it really was. There were 2 very different feelings on the record, which I kind of liked, but at the same time, the way things have changed in the industry, it's harder to release a really big album right now, like long album. The way we consume media has changed so much, and so it feels really good to have split that into 2 records. So I have a second one that's going to be coming out, and it's a very different feeling than this first one. But this first one, I chose the songs that felt the most cohesive and the most true to the core of this sort of out of the dark theme. And I really am happy that I did that. It does feel very cohesive, and it feels like the right thing. But even before I narrowed it down to 20 tracks and then down to 11, it was, I have hundreds of songs. I have so many demos, I have so many tracks, and I kind of have like musician squirrel brain, like I finish one track and then I go to a different track and then I go back to a really old track, and whatever I'm like super focused on in the moment, it kind of influences how I'm seeing the music and what I think should be on the record. And it was constantly changing and morphing as I was getting closer to the release date. So I know I'm going to have more music, and but yeah, it was really hard to kind of finally decide on these tracks and follow through with it. Yeah.
I can only imagine, because I do remember you telling me years ago that you're constantly writing. There's always, like you said, you've got these demos, you've got all these other things that you want to pull from or you kind of revisit at some point. And for you to narrow things down out of that big pile to 11, well, as you said, 20 songs and then eventually 11 songs.
Yeah.
And also kind of based maybe how you're feeling about this cohesive unit. It's like, you know what, I think I want a different one here and I want that one out and we'll put that on the next one. And the next thing you know, it's like, make a decision.
Yeah, it's so hard to make decisions, especially creatively. It's like, because there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. They're just different choices, and I struggle with that a lot.
Yeah, no, that's, it kind of reminds me a little bit like from my end when I have a bunch of different films that are presented to me. And it's like, Mark, I got due dates for this studio, this studio, this studio. And sometimes, and I think it's true of anybody, I watch things based on my mood, just like music. And so like, oh, I need to watch this documentary that sounds really depressing. So I don't want to watch that right now. I want to watch a comedy or watch a holiday film or something. And so I try to like, well, I'll get to that tomorrow. And then sometimes it becomes next week. And then I go, oh, the due date's here. I better watch this thing.
I definitely do that with recording too and music. And like, I often will write songs when I'm supposed to be doing really important other things with my music. I have this commission that I'm supposed to be doing and I just can't, like, I'm not in the mood and I can't bring myself to do it. And instead I end up spending 8 hours writing and recording a new demo for a new song. And I've just wasted like a whole day on this other thing that like is not pertinent to this deadline that I'm like about to meet. And it's so hard. It's so hard to focus on something because it's so mood based and it's if you're not in that right headspace, it can be really hard. So I've had to learn how to kind of just push through and force myself into creative mode on things that I'm not necessarily perfectly in the mood to do, because otherwise I will just completely divert into random things forever.
I can totally relate to that. I don't know how many times when I'm supposed to be doing one thing that again is like staring me in the face, but then I'm over here thinking, oh, I want to finish, this little chord progression I'm working on or something that has nothing to do with the media outlet at all. It's got absolutely nothing.
I think the worst thing too is like when you're creating something new, it's the best thing you've ever done. Every time you're working on something new, your brain is like, this is the best thing I've ever created, and forget anything I've ever done before this. This is it. This is the best thing in the whole world. And of course it's not, but in the moment, like it's new and it's exciting, and then like I start thinking, wow, maybe this should be the album. Maybe I should forget everything else I've done and the years of work that I've put into this. Maybe this is it. And I have that thought every time I write something new, and then inevitably, the next day it's something different. And I've learned that the songs that kind of come back to me after I've gone through the whole arc of like, oh my God, this is amazing, and then actually that was terrible and I don't know what I was thinking, and then later when I come back to it and then again I'm thinking, actually there's something here that's worth coming back to, then I know I have something good. But like there's like you like gaslight yourself about everything because you just go through such a huge range of emotions as you're creating things. And I don't know, artists, we're fickle, we're all over the place.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. And I don't really work with my music so much these days, but when I used to, I did the same thing. I have something that this sounds really cool to me, so and then I'll come back and revisit it maybe like 3 days later, and I'll listen to it and be really critical of it.
Yeah.
But, this isn't what I thought it was. I'll leave it alone and come back to, well, that one part's kind of cool in the bridge, so maybe let me listen to this again.
Yeah.
And then, meanwhile, I'm completely distracted by whatever my focus was supposed to be, if I'm working on a demo or working on something else. And even today with the media outlet, if I'm supposed to be like at a concert, doing photography in the photo pit, my mind might go somewhere else about something else I need to do 2 days later. And I'm like, you need to focus with what's going on right here. You got a job to do. The publicist expects the photos in 48 hours, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, I think it must be like an artist's curse or something. And then for me, I am pulled in all kinds of different directions. and it gets hard. And you have, like you've mentioned, that you have Envy of None as well, in a band project with the legendary Alex Lifeson from Rush. And so it's kind of like you've got your own stuff, you've got that going on. You probably have some other kind of things you're working on. You have a personal life, you have and like you're getting pulled everywhere. And if you can't find any time to kind of like just sit down and focus on something for a little bit, it can get tiring. It can get really tiring.
Yeah, I've seen them referred to as side quests, and I have historically taken on many side quests. I'm in a kids movie that came out pretty recently, and that was definitely like an exciting side quest, but it's like it's a very random thing for me of just to just get up and go do. But I'm in this movie called Powder Pup that came out pretty recently. It's about a snowboarding dog, and which is really fun and very exciting, and it actually turned out really cute. It's a great kids film, but it's so hard to say no to things in the industry when you encounter an opportunity. It's like, yeah, of course, that sounds fun, because everything's fun, when it comes to music and film. Like, of course, yeah, I'll go film a talking dog, snowboarding dog movie. That sounds really fun. And I think I've learned that, sometimes, because I've had a lot of really cool opportunities come my way, and people who want to collaborate, and I've said yes to pretty much everything so far, and I've learned recently that maybe at some point I'm going to have to start picking and choosing, which is really hard to do, and prioritizing. Yeah.
Like I was telling you pre-show, I'm already in that boat where I was like, I can't do everything, and I hate having to say no to opportunities, because part of my brain's thinking, well, maybe that opportunity won't come back again. And two, what an amazing opportunity it is, but I have to say no to you because my plate is just like overfilled with stuff. And I think, at least maybe for yourself it's different, but for where I'm at in life, things will kind of constantly change, and my balance is going to constantly change. So maybe right now I can't take on that much, but maybe 2 years from now, I can take on 3 plates full of stuff. Who cares? But yeah, if you don't learn to say no at some point, you will burn out. That much I know. I've been there where I can't keep this stuff straight, and I'm not hitting the benchmark that I set for what I do. I'm hitting it down here, and that's not good enough. So it's like, you better change the way you're going about your business, Mark, because eventually those opportunities will go away because you suck.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's so amazing that you've been doing these opportunities. And like I remember when you're talking about the children's film, that did come back to me because I remember seeing stuff about that you had posted about it. And so was that your first, like, I can't remember, do you have an acting background at all, or just like?
Yeah, a little bit. If you find me on IMDb, which I don't think I pay for IMDb Pro, so I don't think I have a photo on there anymore, but if you go to IMDb, you'll see some of my past acting credits. I've done some background work. I did another independent film, very, very, very small budget independent film called Loon, which is a horror film. And I think we filmed the whole thing in like 5 days in the woods. And that one I think is also available somewhere that you can watch for free, I think. And then, yeah, I've done a lot of background acting work. I acted in a couple of films that haven't come out. I don't know if they will come out, but also independent films. I did some background work on like Netflix shows where you can see my shoulder in the background of a shot, and you're on set all day, and you're really looking for yourself in the back of the scene, but it's still fun. Yeah, I really wanted to act from when I was a kid. I did my first background acting when I was, I think, in 1st grade or 2nd grade, just on a film that was in town in Spokane, Washington, where I was living at the time. And it kind of gave me that bug of wanting to act. And so anytime I get the opportunity, it's really hard for me to say no. I don't know if I'm very good at it. I never had like formal training. I did like an acting class in 2nd grade where they had us pretend to be rocks. So I don't feel like I learned anything really significant from that. but I really enjoy it. I think it's another form of storytelling, you know, just like music, just like any kind of art. It's conveying an emotion and conveying a story. And I think I still like, I've had to kind of just think a lot, you know, do I prefer acting or do I prefer music? And music is always going to be my number one thing. I think because it's so authentic, I can create music exactly how I want it to be, and or as close to it as I can. But with acting, you're kind of a vessel for somebody else's story, you know, and you don't really have, unless you're directing, unless you're writing, unless you're kind of, you know, behind everything, you are just kind of part of this machine, and you're not really, you have a little bit of leeway with the way that you perform things and the way that you interpret things, but even so, you're still being directed and it's still somebody else's story. And so I find music to be a lot more cathartic because it's so personal and so authentic.
That makes sense to me. I'm not an actor. I've never acted in anything. I did do a really short voiceover for an animated thing.
Nice.
That was during the summer, which kind of caught me off guard. But I'm kind of like, you want me to do what? I said, yeah, Mark, I just have this one little small character. If you want to do 2 lines, that would be great, and I'll put it in there. And what that musician didn't know was that I worked as an audio engineer at one point, so I used to do the recording of voiceovers of other people that actually had talent. Not me. And then once I started firing all these questions, do you want it like this? You want it like this? You want this inflection here or whatever? That's when you start realizing, wait a minute, you're like asking me things that I didn't think you knew, like how this world works. I'm like, well, that I had explained to him where my background used to be many, many years ago. And he's like, oh, awesome. Yeah. And he's like, this is great. I mean, I picked the right person. And I said, well, in terms of recording it, yes, but not in terms of doing it.
I bet you did a great job, though.
It's funny. I'm just this fan at a concert, and I yell out at the artist something, and anytime I watch it, it just makes me laugh and get kind of I feel just kind of weird about it. But having interviewed tons of actors and producers and screenwriters and directors of independent films, and also some major TV things, and definitely from streaming services, I've gotten a real good education about what it takes to do these things, and it's totally this collaboration. Especially in the film world, you might do something, it might take 6 years for it to actually get out to the public and to the wild. Sometimes they never get out at all. And I remember some of the models I used to work with, some of them were doing background work. And one of them told me that she was in, it was the Tom Hanks film, Catch Me If You Can. No, not I think it was Catch Me If You Can. Anyway, she was in the airport scene. And so I remember watching that film. I'm like looking really closely to see if I could find her. And I was like, I didn't see you. And then she found out that her scene got cut.
No.
So all the stuff that they showed in the airport, her scene was no longer in there. And yeah, she was really bummed because she also learned a lesson, like, don't tell people until you actually watch it yourself.
Yeah. That's so true. That's the worst. I've definitely had that happen before. There was the first acting gig that I did. I was a background extra, a kid on a school bus, and I was so excited about it. And I got my first paycheck. I got paid $100, and it was like the most exciting thing of my entire life. I skipped 2 days of school, and I was telling everybody I was going to be in a big movie, and you couldn't see me at all in any of the shots, but I was convinced maybe my hand was somewhere in there or in the background. I was like, maybe that's my hand. That could be my hand. But yeah, you couldn't see me at all. So I was a little sad about that.
Yeah, no, that's too bad, and it's definitely a humbling experience.
Especially as a kid, after you've told everybody you're going to be like a big movie star.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And hello to everybody that's saying. There's several fans that are saying hi to MAIAH. So they're saying hello to you. Yeah, so thank you for joining us. And yeah, I'm thinking that same gal that her scene got cut from that film. She said, "Mark, I'm in this other film." I was like, "I'm kind of really, you're really in it." And it was like kind of a weird comedy movie that I think it was independent at the time, and she was all over that film. I mean, it was like Where's Waldo trying to find her. and she was Asian, and she told me later, she's like, Mark, when I was on set, they say, "Where's the Asian girl?" So they put her everywhere. She's like right by the main characters, looking and listening to them, and that kind of stuff.
She's like every background character. It's actually awesome. I love that for her.
Yeah, it was hilarious at every party, you know, dorm. It was supposed to take place on a college campus. And it was like, there she is, there she is, there she is. And she loved it, and she was still doing that kind of thing. And she was based out of LA, and then she would come up here to visit her boyfriend in Seattle. So that's how we got to know each other. But and that was well before I wasn't reviewing films or anything at that point. So it was just like this all new to me, just a film fan. But that's cool though that you have these opportunities and you have this background, because that means like even like when you're making a music video for your own stuff, you have one, you already have visions in your head, but then two, you might know how to practically make it happen too, which is two different things. So that's a great skill set to have.
Yeah, I've been learning so much about film just in the last even a few months. Just for this music video that I just put out for Out of the Dark, I filmed some of it with help of other people, but then I had to film these sort of transition shots by myself because the deadline was coming up, and I have some really nice, camera gear that I'm still learning how to use, and it was a nice push to kind of just do it and just try and learn. And so I set up these shots in my bathtub. I put like a backdrop in my bathtub, and I filled it with water, and I put a light up, and I set up the camera, and I filmed these transition shots of me starting to go under the water. And I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. And yeah, it's so different being kind of behind the camera, although in this instance I was both in front of the camera and the person behind the camera, but it's a very different world, and once you kind of learn these different tools, it opens the door up to creating so many different things and being able to articulate your vision, which is really exciting. So I'm continuing to learn, and I'm finding a lot of joy in that process of learning film production, and in the future I hope I can just continue to make really cool videos, and I hope they'll get more intricate as time goes on, and I'll be able to wear all the different hats.
We, I think, share that same mentality when there's something new that I haven't done before, especially if it's in the creative realms. Like, well, let me try it. Let me kind of start working on this. It's a new toy to kind of figure out, and then if you can start mastering it, it becomes another tool in your arsenal of things.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to get, like in your case, trying to get a specific vision out of your head, either as a recording or as a video or concert concept or anything else, a poster art. You're like, well, I have enough skill set to kind of know what it takes to get this. Even if you're like collaborating with somebody else, you can tell them in technical terms what you're trying to achieve. So it makes it a lot easier than, well, I want it to be fanciful. Well, what does that mean?
Exactly. That's so true though. Just having the dialogue and having the words to be able to communicate your vision, whether it's in music or, in film or in graphic design, having the words, knowing the language, it's like learning a language, and once you are able to articulate that, it makes it so much easier to work with other people too. And you always hear people talking about, oh yeah, in the studio the artist said they wanted it to sound purple. What does that mean? But being able to say, I want this kind of compression, I want you to put a dip in the EQ in this frequency range, I want you to accent this, and being able to articulate the kind of reverb that you want, or the kind of effects that you want, and why, or the saturation. And I'm still learning all of that in the production realm too, and it's very freeing. I think learning new skills is a skill in and of itself. I think a lot of people are either afraid to take that first step, or they get really overwhelmed by that kind of the difficulty in learning something new. And I think getting to the point where you're not afraid to try something, you're not afraid to mess up, you're not afraid of the work it's going to take to learn something new, it really can be such a freeing and exciting thing. And I feel like I'm kind of learning that in my life right now. It's learning things is so cool. I love it so much.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's something that's it's very empowering when you start getting into the rhythm of doing it and changing your mentality about things. And I'm a very introverted person. I'm somebody that is not a risk taker typically, so trying to do something brand new is daunting to me. At least it used to be, and now it's more of like, no, I want to put myself out there because I have seen what's happened when I do, and all these great things that come back from it. And I'm thinking like what you were talking about with yourself getting behind the camera and shooting those transition scenes. Way back when I was working with models and doing model photography, one of the best things that ever happened to me was that I had a model tell me, Mark, why don't you get in front of the camera and see what it's like? And I was like, no, I don't want to pose. I don't want to do any of this kind of stuff. I'm behind the camera for a reason. Nobody wants pictures of me. And she insisted that I do it. And it was one of the best things because we're down at the beach in Edmonds. And so I had to get in the water and do all these kind of poses that I had models do for hundreds of times. And I realized how tough it was. And it was so good for me to understand what they go through by being in their actual shoes. And we got a couple pictures from there that I actually liked. So I've shared those every now and then. But I highly recommend that to anybody who's creative, that if you're used to being on one side of something, whatever that happens to be, even if it's like learning one instrument, maybe you're the drummer, well, what does the bass player do with you? You kind of know in your ear, but maybe you actually haven't learned how to play it. It's two different things, and it's so helpful once you do it. And again, if you're a photographer and you work with people, get in front of the camera, have somebody else shoot you and see what it's like. You'll learn a lot real quick.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point, though. I think it does also allow you to be more, have more respect for what people do, too. I think it's so easy to take for granted the work that other people do because a lot of times people make it look easy, whatever it is that they're doing. If they've done it for a long time, you're working with a photographer or a model or a graphic designer or people who, this is their specialty. They make it look easy. It's so easy to take that for granted. And then as soon as you step into their shoes and try it, you realize, wow, these things take so much work, and there's a lot of skill and a lot of time that these people have spent learning how to do this, and it really does. I feel like I've gained so much respect for the people that I've even known for long periods of time, trying to do things and trying to learn things, and it not only is it fun to learn, but it really puts things into perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I know at one point, even if you're just using your smartphone and you're trying to film videos of your friends or something and trying to edit something together, you kind of realize, obviously TikTok's super popular now too. Like this takes a certain skill set to make it look the way it does, or to have a certain energy to it, or the kind of emotion you're trying to convey. And then I thought, oh, this wouldn't be too hard. I know anybody can do this, right? And it's like, well, no.
Yeah, it does. It takes work, and like you're saying, even social media, like that's such a skill now that I feel like I'm still learning how to have. But it's a different kind of vulnerability posting to TikTok or Reels, like making that kind of content. I find is very scary. I can put myself in front of a camera when it's like a big production and like, it's got this big vision, but doing little almost like fun off the cuff TikTok or like social media reels and things like that, trends, that is so outside of my wheelhouse, and I feel so awkward and sort of it's like a whole different world and a whole different skill set, and people do get really good at that, and I feel like a total newbie when it comes to that kind of content creation.
That makes two of us. I watch that stuff. I'm kind of like, well, that's really cool. That's pretty funny. I don't know. Should I try to learn how to do that? And I might try for a little while. I was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to bother with this.
I know. I think it's also like, it's such a fleeting and short-lived game. The things that become popular, the things that are trending, the things that are cool, change so quickly, and I find it so hard to keep up, and I constantly feel like I'm just out of touch and like unable to keep up, and by the time I'm doing something that was part of a trend, it's like not a trend anymore. And I'm like, I always feel like I'm just so aware of the fact that I'm like behind on things. So I feel like the best way to go about it, honestly, is to just do something that you want to do and that you find fun, you know, whatever it is, you know. But yeah, it's hard. It's a weird game, and it takes a lot of skill to be able to do it well.
I totally agree, and I definitely got to a point of like, no, I'm just going to post like what I want when I want. I know they're supposed to keep to a schedule. There's certain type of things that are, like you said, trending, and I'm always like, you know, 3 steps behind the trend. And
Yeah.
it wasn't, at least at the time, it hasn't been worth my well, it hasn't been worth my time to really try to master that aspect. But at the same time, I also realized I'm losing out on some opportunities and some demographics and things like that. But I'm okay with that because I understand it. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. And even like when I post something like for an upcoming live stream, I kind of use the same format, the same things that I do. And like that kind of, I should probably change that to kind of make it look new and refreshed. And like, I'm like, well, I don't want to do something new. This works for me right now. Maybe I'll add some music to it.
That's the hardest thing, I think, with this constant changing technology, especially now with AI and how things are changing so quickly. It's like once you learn a skill, you have to learn it again a million times because it's constantly changing. The programs are changing. There's newer, faster ways to do things, and if you're stuck in the way that you do things, somebody else is going to learn the new way to do that same thing, and they're going to do it 5 times faster, and it's going to be a better quality. So you have to, like, it's not just learning it once, it's learning it constantly and relearning it, which takes so much effort.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that it's constantly like a work in progress, that you can't just stay stationary at all. You'll get left in the dust with social media. And then there's the whole other side of just, the not so nice side of social media and what it can do to your mental health, and needing to take breaks and getting caught up on who's doing what next to you. You know, they've got so many followers and you don't have these. And especially like when influencers became a whole thing. I'm like, okay, I understand you're doing this, and you have big influence. If you report on something, all these followers are going to see it, and if you like it, great, and if you don't like it, then not so great. And it's so easy to get caught up in that world, and I so try to keep it at arm's length as much as I can. And I don't have the following that you have, so even on my small level, it's still like, I know I don't want to answer this DM from somebody that's kind of being a jerk, and I don't want to just look at this other thing that I'm like, it's nice that you sent it or whatever, if your tone is correct with me, but some people, they're not so nice.
Yeah, there's definitely, like, the critical comments can be really difficult to manage. I think I've encountered that, throughout my whole career at different levels. I feel really grateful that for the most part, like, the people who send me messages are so incredibly kind and very genuine, and I get such thoughtful messages from people and have such sweet connections, and and I've made such meaningful connections with people all across the world through music and through these videos that I've been posting. But yeah, occasionally you'll get the critical comment or the hate comment, and I've had to learn to not respond. I've definitely, like, a couple times in the past, like, wrote something back and then immediately regretted it and deleted it. And it's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like, you just leave it alone. Don't let it get to you. But it's so hard, It's like, it's almost impossible to separate that feeling of being personally attacked, especially when it's something you've worked so hard on. I think for somebody else, they're coming by it, it's just another thing in their feed. They make a comment, they don't really think about it, but for you, it's like, oh my God, this person just stabbed me in the heart. and how can I not take that personally? But, it's, everybody's got different perspectives, and that's okay. But it's hard. I take everything so personally. I'll cry. I'll still cry about it. I'm a baby. It's okay.
I think every artist, including myself, can relate to what you said, because you might get 100 positive comments, but that one negative one is the one you're going to think about. Yeah. And like you said, some could just be passing by through their feed and leave something, they don't really think 2 cents about it. But the person who created this stuff or whatever's out there that they're being negative about. I remember back during the pandemic when I was on that tour with Alice, that there's a part of YouTube that was filtering out like spam comments, and I never checked that folder ever. And then one time I found it on my laptop. I said, well, what is this? So I looked at it, and most of it was spam, but there were some things that got through into that folder that I'm kind of glad that it got flagged or whatever, because I was looking at them and they are nasty. I mean, some nasty comments about some of my, either the guests I interviewed or sometimes about me. And one of them was like really long, like you had to scroll through it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why do you take so much time to say something so negative to someone you don't know? And if you don't like it, move on to the next thing. I mean, that's what I do. I don't sit there and be like, I'm going to tell you how I feel about it.
I know, it's kind of crazy. Like I definitely have had a couple of those that are like really long and like there's so much projection and you're like, this person doesn't know me at all, but this is like intense, and the amount of projection and assumptions and anger and it's wild. I think sometimes you're just the target that day and you just happen to be in the in that person's feed at the wrong time.
Yeah, you just have to, you do your best to have a healthy attitude toward it, as hard as that may be, because like I said, like you were saying earlier, there's always going to be that little part of me that's still bothered by it, and I try to ignore it. I try to do everything I can, but it's like, man, that sucked that you said that.
And I think it's okay to be bothered by it. I feel like there's so much pressure to like develop this thick skin and to let it roll off your back and that it shouldn't matter to you. But to be honest, it's like, of course it's going to matter. Of course it's going to bother you, and that's okay. You know, it's okay to like feel hurt by things. And then, you know, of course, like don't respond, process it, and then move on. But like it's okay to be hurt. That's what I think.
Well, and in my case, I don't think I can help it because I will be hurt
Yeah.
when it's said.
Yeah.
It just naturally happens. And I don't want to spend too much time on negativity, but I had one person that they were super supportive of a band interview I did. And then I did another interview with another artist, and I mistakenly just had a brain fart and forgot that I had interviewed this other band because they're talking about similarities between female bands that had all female members is what it was. And so this fan he's the one that wrote the big long thing, and I did reply to it about a day later. I had to kind of collect myself and say, do I just want to ignore this and delete it, or do I take time? I did like a really concise reply to it, and then I blocked him. But here's the weird thing is, like, about a year later, that band was actually getting the first band that he was a fan of was coming to Seattle. So I posted something on a different social media platform about, hey, they're going to be coming on this date, you know, tickets go on sale, whatever. And then he DM'd me saying that, oh, so now you remember them. This was like over a year later. I'm like, dude, do you have a life or whatever? So I didn't reply to him. I blocked him at that point. I haven't heard from him since. But it does make me question about, what are you doing with your life when you do that? I can't be the only person he's doing that to, following people around like, oh, I'm going to get him. At some point, he's going to slip up. I'm going to say something bad about, like, go enjoy the outdoors, or go be with some friends if you have friends, and just do something positive with your life and your time.
I just think us as like, I think we as people are really lacking healthy emotional regulation, you know? I just feel like we're really lacking in that department, and then we have access to this like void of social media, and it just ends up being this sort of dumping place of our emotions, for better or for worse.
Yeah, no, I agree that that social media has given everyone a platform, whether they deserve it or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I'm older, so I think back in the day, but you know, before the internet and all this kind of stuff, that if you had a problem with something, the only people you told were your friends at school, or maybe your family or whatever, your neighbors. You didn't have this thing that went far-reaching to, you know, another country in the world.
I know. I think about that a lot. I think I was kind of in that transition phase growing up where like Facebook became a thing, but I was lucky enough that some of the stuff that was being posted when I was in middle school was, you know, definitely there were things that were problematic. There was cyberbullying that I was experiencing, and like just I'm sure I was embarrassing, you know, as any middle schooler probably is. And I feel so grateful that like TikTok didn't exist, that Instagram didn't exist, and that the things that happened are now not on Facebook anymore, you know, and it's like it was at a time where things weren't forever, where they are now. It's like just in that very small window before everything became like scary and permanent, and you know, kids now can't just be kids without this like constant digital trail behind them. There's like this added pressure of you know, the social media fight is terrifying. I can't imagine trying to navigate that as a child, and like I don't know. It's such a weird world and how things have changed, and I just can't imagine having access to this much social media at such a young age. And I'm really grateful that I only experienced a very small portion of that. It was in that little window where, yeah, thankfully nothing that I'm too worried about now.
Yeah, no, I've said that. I have friends and family members that have kids that are either elementary age or some of them are middle school and high school age. And I'm like, I don't know, from the parent side, how you raise kids in this environment with social media and smartphones and instant access to any kind of information. You're watching a movie. Who's that guy? You can just find the cast member immediately.
Yeah.
And it's just like overload constantly.
Yeah.
And if you're not on top of things with the rules that you have in your house, like you don't have phones at the dinner table or whatever it is, it can just run amok.
Yeah, it's hard. I can't even imagine it's just, yeah, it's so much added challenge to being a parent these days with social media and the internet and everything that's going on. It's like, yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to police anyone younger than me.
Just myself. Honestly, I have to set timers, and like I have these little timers that tell me when I've spent over an hour on social media, and they'll like turn off my social media for me. Otherwise, I will just scroll for hours. I can't even like control my own brain, let alone somebody else's.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I have to force myself to take a break.
Yeah.
Because especially if it's like, well, I don't have a lot pending this particular day, or it's late at night or whatever. So you start scrolling out of habit. And it's like, I'm only like half looking at this stuff. It's like, what am I doing?
I know. It's like your brain goes into limbo. You're not even thinking. It's just like, I don't even know. You're hypnotized. Actually, there's truth to that. I was reading an article that said that social media has the same effect on your brain as hypnosis. And so when you're like thinking, what did I just spend the last hour doing? And I wasn't really there. You literally hypnotizing yourself. It's terrifying.
That's interesting. I mean, I never thought about it that way, but it is very true, because you do like, where'd the time go? Now I have to go up to my appointment or something, and you just basically wasted an hour or in 2 hours, whatever.
It's crazy.
It is. I do see that we had a question earlier about many fans are saying they're looking forward to receiving your CD.
Yay!
Yeah, and they're just kind of curious about if there is an ETA, like when they're going to ship out the door, and also was this independently produced, or was there a label involved?
Yes. Okay. So I produced the album myself, which was very, very exciting. And like I said, Jim Roach, who mixed the album, he also co-produced some of the tracks, and but I did a lot of work on these songs, and I'm very, very proud of that. And the CDs, I gave a big giant box of all the signed CDs to the UPS man today, and they're gonna get to the facility that ships them out hopefully tomorrow. I think it's an overnight shipping. So then they will start fulfilling all of the orders. And obviously, depending on where you are, it might take a different amount of time to get to you. But I'm so happy to finally have those out in the world and coming to you, because it's been such a long time coming. So many people were waiting for a very, very long time. So I appreciate all of your patience. It's been it's been a long journey with this album.
And how many CDs did you sign?
I signed 240 CDs, and I wrote, I think, 200 handwritten notes for the first 200 orders. So if you are one of the first 200, then you'll get both a signed CD and a little note from me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's always great when artists kind of do that extra touch, because just for me as a fan, when if there's those opportunities, especially if it's signed or there's a note with it, it's like it becomes much more special than maybe just the one that's not signed or that doesn't have the note.
Yeah, I really wanted people to know that it really means a lot, the support, especially like some of those first orders came in, I think, over a year ago. And so they've been really incredibly patient. And this year has been really challenging for me. I think the last few years, especially, I've been kind of in this transitional phase and working really hard, but also my mental health has been kind of up and down. And finishing this record was definitely a battle at certain points in that journey. And so I really wanted people to know that their support and their continued support through all of this and their patience and everything has been so appreciated. And it really, really means a lot because the people who ordered those CDs, those are the people that make this career possible for me and have kind of kept me going through all of this and all of these challenges. So yeah, if I could send them, all 10-page letters, I would. But yeah, my hand was cramping really hard after the 200 notes. So it's like, okay, maybe just leaving it at a note is good for now. But yeah, it really means a lot to me.
That's awesome. And I mean, I think one thing that's been nice for me by doing this interview and reconnecting with you is that the core of who you are when I first met you hasn't changed. Sometimes as people go through life, they change, and sometimes for the better, and sometimes maybe not so much for the better. But you've always been so gracious and humble and appreciative and incredibly creative and artistic, and you just added to that core over these years. So it's wonderful to see how you've grown and just everything it's been going up this way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I've talked about this in some of my other live streams about that. There's people that I've come across. I think we were kind of talking about a pre-show that it's so easy, or maybe during this live stream, my memory's not so good anymore. But it's always nice to see people that you're rooting for, and then watch them actually start attaining those goals, the things that they wanted to do, whatever they may be. It could be that to finally get on a stage in a local city and play a show, or it could be to do a tour, to put an album out, to collaborate with a bunch of other people, and just to start making things happen. And as we both know, and anyone out there that's watching that's artistic, these things don't just come to you. And if the opportunity is, then you got to do something about it. Otherwise, it's just going to go shoo, just like that. And I don't know how many people have talked to me about how did these things happen? When they said, well, you started off doing this fanzine, Mark, and now you're doing all this other, fancy schmancy stuff. And I have to kind of explain to them that some of it was me just trying to look for opportunities and then trying to massage those opportunities as much as I could and watch them expand into things, but also keeping my eyes and ears open that, again, I'm not a extroverted person, but there might be a time to talk to somebody about, oh, I didn't realize that you're connected with this theater group, and what do you guys do, and where's the theater at? And here's what I do. Oh, why don't you come check out a rehearsal? And then you just kind of watch this ball roll. But if you don't take some initiative, it won't happen. It won't happen at all.
That's so true. I think that's the thing that a lot of people who maybe aren't in the industry don't really realize is like for every artist that you see releasing music or working on projects, it has taken so much effort to get to that point. Every step of the way is a concerted effort towards that goal. Every person that you reach out to, every time that you try, every rejection letter, everything is a step towards that goal. And along the way, you really do get a lot of rejection along the way, and it can be really hard, and it's hard to continuously put yourself out there over and over again. And but for everybody that you see that's doing that's what they're doing, and it's this constant continuing to try. And I have so much admiration for anybody who's doing that in whatever career path that they're doing, because it gets so tiring, and there's so many times where you're like, maybe I should just stop. And this is hard, and my heart hurts, and and is it even worth it? And it takes a lot of concerted effort to work through that and keep trying and keep trying to, you know, put your, I don't know, I don't fish, but I was gonna do some sort of fishing metaphor there, but putting your bait out there. But you know, it's, you just got to keep trying, and I commend anybody who's continuing in that journey, you know, because it can be really hard, and it can get discouraging, and you know, I'm proud of anybody that's out there and pushing through that.
Very well said. I don't know how many times I thought about, you know what, I'm going to take all my social media down. I'm going to get everything off my YouTube channel, and I'm just going to live my life how it used to be. And I don't really said that publicly too often, but it definitely happens. If you kind of get into a certain rhetoric, like you're saying, I might get like 5 rejections. And like, man, nothing's going my way anymore. I'm just frustrated with this whole thing. It definitely happened when I was booking and scheduling models, because they would flake out all the time. I was like, what am I doing to myself? I'm like a glutton for punishment, and why do I do it? And then something would happen that would completely 180 it. Something that, you know, really great person or some opportunity came along, and it's like, this is why I do this. But it's so hard that back and forth and getting stomped on, and then you feel good, then you feel bad, and then you feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's such a crazy roller coaster, and like, you know, what you see is you know, like what they say, it's the highlight reel. You know, social media is always the highlights, but you're not really seeing all of those dips and the really big struggles and all of the rejections and all of the times it doesn't work out. And definitely had plenty of those in the last year. And so it's really nice to like to have these wins and to be making steps forward. And I do feel like I'm making steps forward, but you know, it's not linear. It is, you know, a couple steps forward and a step back, and then, you know, and then maybe I lay down for a little while, and then a couple steps forward again. And it's a journey, and yeah, I'm really grateful. I'm so happy to finally have this album out. It's a huge milestone for me, and this music is so important to me, and it's been a long journey, and so I'm really, really grateful and so happy that people are listening to it and connecting to it. And I've received some really amazing comments and messages from people, and those are the things that like motivate me to keep going. And I just feel so much gratitude for everybody listening and everybody on this live stream, and like, we're all amazing. I love the people that I get to connect with so much.
That's awesome, and it's a great segue, because Ian was asking about, MAIAH, what was your favorite aspect of this process of sharing your journey through your beautiful album?
Oh, my favorite aspect of sharing my journey, I think, honestly, yeah, connecting with people. Because I think when you're working on things, you're kind of in your own little cave, and once you put it out there, you get to see how that music connects with other people, and their journeys. And I've had so many people share personal stories with me and how they related to the music, you know, and that has been really, really meaningful to me. And yeah, I think that's definitely the best part.
That's awesome, and like you're saying, from a creative artist, that when you put your final product out, there's always going to be that part of you like, so what do people think? Do you like it? Is it working for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always put on a certain face like, oh yeah, I'm so proud of this, and this is what. But there's a part of you inside that's like, do you like it?
Definitely. There's definitely a big part of me that's like, do you like it? But I think honestly I got to the point where I almost let go of that completely by the time I released this album, because there was a period where I was definitely focused on like, what are people gonna like? Are they going to like this? Is this the right time for this? And then I kind of got over that and almost into this negative slump of like, none of it matters. I just gonna do this, and I'm gonna do it for me, even if nobody cares about it. And so now it's like, it's out, and people are so kind and so sweet, and it's like, I like the day that I released it, I was just sobbing all day, and I still off and on this week have been crying, because it's just like, people are so kind. And it is, I don't know, art is just such a personal thing, and having people receive it with such softness and empathy and kindness is like the most rewarding thing in the world.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, just like what we were talking about, just this kind of the whole cathartic aspect of releasing the album, and this journey is obviously incredibly personal to you from all these years to finally culminate in this this album finally getting out to people, and then the response to it's been really personal for people. So that makes you feel even better about it, that it's resonating, you know, on different levels with fans and listeners. And then it just makes your it adds that other piece to your art that you're kind of hoping happens, but then when it actually does happen, you're like, oh, yes.
Yes. I know, it's like, I don't want to hope for it, but you know, it's okay if it doesn't happen, but when it does happen, it's so nice. It really is.
I remember I had, there was a local actress that she was in a musical, and she said something about it on social media. We all know that reviews don't matter, but good ones do.
Yeah.
and it was mine. It was my review that she shared the
Yeah.
link of.
Honestly, though, I had an article come out the day my album came out, and it was so thoughtful, and just the attention to detail, how meaningful that article was. It made me sob, and it was like, it made everything in that moment like worth it, and it was just such, you can't really understate the power of like a really meaningful review and like the work that you're doing for artists, because it really is. It's like when you get that one review or that one article that person clearly likes the music, has taken their time to understand the music and the journey behind it, and makes you feel seen. It's such a powerful thing, and that's part of why I love like what you do, Mark. It's like, I don't know, it's so amazing.
Well, thank you. And I learned a lot from that kind of feedback. Definitely when I talk to the actual artist. I'm thinking of another example that I'd reviewed a version of the Nutcracker from a local ballet company here, and I ended up interviewing one of the ballet dancers that I saw, virtually. And she was like, "Yeah, Mark, I remember your review because you mentioned my name," and she was just glowing.
It's so true.
And from my end, that was really a really good wake up call about sometimes the power of what you write. And so I do my very best, being a fellow creative person, that I don't ever feel right about slamming something, no matter what it is. I might just say it didn't resonate with me. Maybe it'll resonate with you. But I don't ever want to get to the point of being one of these people that just sit there and just going after somebody. It doesn't matter if it's an album release, a film release, theater production. I usually find something positive in what I saw, and if I can't, I still try to word it in a way that's not going to be like just decimating to somebody, because I wouldn't want that done to me. If we reverse the roles.
Positive feedback is really powerful. It's why I try to respond to everybody that sends me a message about the music, enjoying the music, because it really does mean so much to me. And like, I don't think a lot of people even realize that taking the time out of their day to say something positive to somebody else about what they're creating, like, it really makes a huge difference. And those people are blessings in this world. They really are. The people who take the time to share positivity and kindness, and like, it's a hard world. It's a hard industry. And I think this is true regardless of the industry that you're working in. It's, everybody's got to be tough all the time, and you gotta build a tough skin and all this stuff. But to be honest, we're all just softies. We're all soft, pretending we're not. And when you take the time to be kind to somebody, it really does make a huge difference. So I'm really, really, really grateful for everybody who's taken the time to say something nice to me, and it makes my heart happy.
Yeah, again, it's very well said, and I do agree with that. I don't care what field of art you're in, you have this soft part of you. It just kind of goes along with the territory, and you can put up this front and these walls and whatever else, and I'm solely in that mix too. That when you get to heart of hearts, I care about what you think. I care about how you receive my art that I'm putting out, and I do want to know, like, if you don't like it. Yeah, it might kind of hurt me, but what is it about it that isn't working for you? And I'll sit there and kind of stew on it, for a while, which maybe isn't healthy. But if I can get something out of it that will help me, maybe improve what I'm doing the way I want to do it, then that's great. If it's something that's completely negative and not constructive in any way, shape, or form, then I have to learn to just kind of cut you loose and take it with a grain of salt, because I don't agree with it. I've had this whole thing, especially again during the pandemic when I did all these live streams, that people are saying I get direct messages about, Mark, you're not Asian enough as a host. And I'm kind of like, what the hell does that mean? And then two, you don't have certain types of guests on. I mean, they're just nitpicking through stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. I have a lot of intention with what I do, who I bring on. I can show you the list of things, but I'm not going to get into that realm because then it's just going to go down a negative road.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. Other people know what I'm doing. It's clearly there. You can look at, like, in my YouTube channel, the wide variety of people I've interviewed on purpose. If I was trying to be smart, quote unquote, and trying to go for views and more subscribers and things, there's certain people that I need to be going after. That's just the way things work. I don't give a shit about that stuff. I care about this person's interesting. I want people to know about them. Period.
I think that's awesome. And yeah, you're right. Like there's such a fine line between constructive criticism and that sort of negativity. And like, there's definitely a space for constructive criticism. And I've had to learn how to like find where that line is. And like, cause you know, it's so easy to obsess over things, especially negative things. But like, if you can get something out of it and you can grow from it and you can learn, you know, I've definitely had those moments where I'm like, this person doesn't understand me at all. And then I think about it. I'm like, actually, you know, maybe they have a point. Maybe I could do this thing better, or, you know, this part of my song I could improve in these ways, you know. And so there's that fine line between like negativity and then also, can I learn something from this? And you know, it's also subjective too, but yeah, it's important to find that balance and still be able to learn from things and grow from things. And you know, but yeah, you are perfect the way that you are. Whoever said you weren't Asian enough is crazy.
that comment, I'm just kind of like,
I don't even know what to do with that. That's a crazy thing to say.
yeah, I don't know. That's just one of those things I just had to shake my head at.
Yeah.
And I was still new to this stuff. It wasn't like, this is live stream number 371, so I've done a few of these now. And I kind of laugh. You know, I'm still here. I'm still doing this.
You're doing a great job, and you're perfect the way that you are.
Well, I appreciate it, and again, for like, I have a pretty good, however this came probably from my professional life, of being able to put myself in someone else's shoes, and so I'm very empathetic and also very creative and artistic. So I try to be mindful of that kind of thing when I'm interacting with anybody, including with my own feedback. And sometimes I remember there's a whole local Seattle theater group that I won't get into here, but they were talking about that most of the critics, which I'm one of apparently, I don't consider myself a critic, but that we're too nice. And then I saw somebody that had written a review that was pretty scathing, and they said, "More, this reviewer doesn't know what she's talking about, and she's so mean, and she's so whatever." I'm like, what do you want? How are we supposed to, figure things out? And kind of like what you're saying, like right before your album came out, you're like, you know what? I'm just kind of doing what I want, and I'm just happy about it. I can't wait for it to get out. And you just have to start believing, like, this is what I'm doing, and I believe in what I'm doing. So if you like how I write my reviews, great. If you don't like it, if you take it the wrong way, I might listen to it if it's constructive criticism, but most likely I already know the path I'm on, and I've had too many people say that it's a good path. So, if you want to join me, great. If you don't, follow somebody else's path. There's plenty out there
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah, it is. It's such an important place to get to, and I feel like I'm finally getting there, because it's so hard to not try to feed into what other people want. And if you follow everybody's criticism, you're still never going to make everybody happy. It is impossible because everybody has a different perspective and different opinions. And I think for a while I was trying to do that. I was like, okay, I this person says this, so I'm going to do this way now. And then I would receive criticism that was the opposite, and you're never going to make everybody happy. So you really have to get to the point where you're just doing what feels right to you. But which is so simple to say, but it really is. It's hard to get to that point, and it takes time.
It absolutely does. I'm thinking about another comment that came through where somebody was going after me because of the guests that I had and their particular political views, which didn't line up with this person. And I'm kind of like, did you watch the interview at all? Do you even know? So maybe you've got some, soundbite or something that you watched somewhere else about what this person has said or what they believe in. And then did you get into the discussion when I actually talked to them about that? Because it was so polarizing during 2020, particularly. And it was hard to see someone else's point of view, and it's still that way now in 2024. But
It is, yeah.
I did my best to try to find a common ground with somebody, because they're looking at me the same way. Like, I can't believe that you support this, or this. And I'm like, well, this is why I do that, and this is why I think. But I also respect the fact that you have a different opinion of it. It was hard. It was really hard to do.
Yeah.
But then to have somebody go after me, like, I can't believe that you had that guy on your show, and blah blah. I'm like, just go to the next channel. just go to the next thing.
Yeah.
And if you don't like them, and I understand that you don't agree with their viewpoints or whatever, you're not, like you just said, you're not going to agree with everybody, and not every criticism is going to go away. So at some point, you have to just kind of get to that point of like, this is what I'm doing, and I feel my intention is correct. Whatever I'm trying to put out is the way that I want to. So if you're not reacting to it correctly, there's not much I can do about it at this point, because I don't feel I was being a jerk.
Yeah, as long as you're being kind and doing your best. And I think especially with art and music and everything, it's so subjective anyway, so you just gotta do your best, try to be a good person, and hope that you connect with the people you're meant to connect with. And that's where I've arrived at, and I'm very happy about that. But it's definitely, it's hard to do.
Well, that's great that you got to that point, because that's going to be even more freeing for you now that you've hit that point, in terms of what you do moving forward. And I know for me, it was definitely freeing when I was not always looking over my shoulder or kind of questioning what I'm doing. When that started to shrink, and now I feel more confident about what I'm doing and what I'm putting out, and just better things just keep happening. It's just amazing. I see Brooks Berg just joined us. So hi Brooks, good to see you in the chat, and it's been great catching up with MAIAH and talking about her new album and all these
Brooks,
things.
we talked about you earlier.
Yes, we did. It was all good. It was all good things.
Yes.
So what is coming up now that the album's out in the wild? What is in the pike for maybe this next 6 months?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've got a lot of exciting things in the works. With this album, I'm still going to be promoting it. I'll be making videos to help promote this album further. I'm working on new merch and things like that. Probably some more interviews and promotional things for the album. But then on top of that, I have Envy of None stuff that I've been working on. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about that right now, but there's a lot of exciting things going on with Envy of None, and I'm really looking forward to that. And there's going to be more stuff with Envy of None very soon. And we've been working really hard on that music, so I'm excited for where that's going. Sorry to be so vague about that, but so there's definitely a lot coming soon. And then I've also got the second half of this album. That's a whole new album that will be coming out, and it's a very different vibe. And so I'm working on what that's going to look like and the release date for that, and then also probably some touring dates. I'm working on scheduling different shows at the moment, probably for the spring and the summer. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. I do love performing live and getting to meet people, and I'm excited to see what that's going to look like.
You've got a lot going on, and it's perfectly fine. I've interviewed tons of people. They have something that they're right in the midst of doing, and they can't spill the beans yet. I mean, it's just where it is. So, totally understandable, but I mean, that is a great segue. We'll spend a little bit of time if we can. That I'm like a moderate Rush fan. So when I saw Envy of None was a project a few years back, and when the debut came out, the EP and everything else, and you can tell me because you know Alex, you work with him, and he's always come across to me as like one of the most genuine, he has, if you probably knew him when Geddy Lee and they first met back in junior high, that he probably hasn't changed. he just seems like he's kind of goofy and also, you know, immensely talented, obviously. But as a personality is like, you could probably just talk to that guy and you wouldn't really know that you're talking to, you know, one of the greatest guitarists ever to walk the earth and one of the best trios. So what's your experience been like with Alex?
I love Alex. He's an incredible person, and you know, it's so easy to talk to him and easy to hang out with him. And that's one of the things I've loved over the last couple of years, is getting even closer to the guys. And they call themselves my Canadian brothers, and that's really what they feel like. We feel like family at this point. And Alex is just a really genuine person. He's funny. Of course, he's incredibly talented, and I feel so inspired by him when we get to work together. And I love getting to make music with him. But on top of that, he's just a really genuinely awesome person, hilarious, fun to talk to, thoughtful. I think because he's so funny, it might be easy to overlook how just genuinely intelligent he is too. Like I love talking to him and talking to him about anything. You know, we'll go off on tangents about anything and everything, and it's just really, he's a fascinating person. And I feel like every time we talk, I'm learning from him and just absorbing, you know, everything. But he's funny and kind and just such a genuine person. So I feel very grateful to get to work with him. And I feel that way about the Andy and Alf too, the other Eons. But they're really good guys. And you know, and Andy and I have also had the chance to get closer, same with Alf, and yeah, we just feel like family at this point. I feel really grateful to be a part of the Eon family.
That's awesome. And I was going to ask that. Have you ever golfed with Alex?
I've made the guys promise that they're going to teach me how to golf. So that's part of our plans this year, is they're going to teach me how to golf.
Yeah, because I know that's one of his big passions. Anytime he was in between tour dates or whatever, he was finding the local golf course and he was out there.
Exactly. So that's the plan. I feel like every time I've also heard of these like really big, important like business conversations in the industry happening on golf courses, and I'm like, I really need to learn how to golf. This seems really important.
That is true. You go do a round of golf and you kind of talk shop while you're hitting the links. Well, that's great that you got connected with Alex. And if I remember right, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Was it through your working with Andy that kind of how Alex kind of came into your world?
Yeah, I won a song contest a long time ago now, and one of my prizes was a Zoom mentorship call with Andy. And through that, we started working together on some music with Alf, and then Andy brought Alex in. You know, he sent Alex the music and was like, you know, I don't actually remember how that conversation between them went, but I know that Andy called me and was like, my buddy Alex loves the music and he wants to play guitar on some of these tracks, and then a couple tracks turned into an album, and now here we are. All these years later, continuing to make music together. So it really was such a amazing thread of connections. But yeah, Andy was kind of the seed that brought us all together.
And Andy used to be in a band called Coney Hatch, is that correct?
Yeah, and I think they're still touring. I think he was just doing some tour dates in Europe for Coney Hatch, which is really cool. But yeah.
So this is how far back I go. I saw Coney Hatch open for Judas Priest in 1982.
Yeah, nice. The Coney Hatch is awesome. I love seeing the old pictures of Andy with like the giant hair and like the leather jackets. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, when I saw that he was one of the people in Envy of None, that you were working with as well, that I'm like, wait a minute, Coney Hatch. I saw them back in the day.
Yeah, Andy's awesome. And like the amount of stories that Andy has, throughout his whole career, he's so fun to talk to. And yeah, it's been really fun getting to know him.
Well, that's amazing. Like you're saying, you've got videos coming out, and you've got some more merch things, and you're working on Interviewing of None stuff over here, and then you're looking to book dates for touring in the spring and summer, and any other kind of opportunity that might come your way. Just kind of see, do I have space on my plate to kind of take it on? And it seems like you've kind of found yourself in a pretty good space now, and that that's just something to build off of, into 2025. And yeah, this it sounds like everything's just moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I feel really grateful, and it feels like I'm making progress on these big projects, and then behind the scenes, little seeds that I'm planting, and it feels like I'm slowly kind of making these important steps forward. And then also in my personal life too, I've been working hard to kind of gain this sense of like independence in my life, and as people do behind the scenes, I've just been growing a lot as a person, and that's felt really good too. So I feel like I'm planting lots of little seeds and watching them start to grow, and that feels really nice.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter if it's planting one seed, planting 300 seeds. When they start to sprout and you start seeing, yeah, this is why I kind of did this, and now it's starting to happen. And a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, then you're thinking, yeah, this is so cool to see this thing come to fruition around me. And then, like you were saying earlier, you already have this amazing supporting cast of people that amazing human beings that are working with you on this journey. And you got supporters that are clearly in the chat and everywhere else that support you with kind words and everything else that they just want to see the best for you. And I'm one of those people. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's been amazing talking with you after all this time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for joining me on all of those tangents. That was really fun.
Well, you know what? It was my pleasure, because I have a random mind too. So and you put two people like that together, then we create some interesting live stream.
You never know what you can get. Thank you so much for having me, Mark. It was so nice to see you again after all these years, and I really appreciate you, and you're lovely to talk to. And thank you everybody who joined on the live stream.
Yeah, thank you, MAIAH, for the kind words. And again, it's been great catching up with you and seeing you again. And just know that myself and many other people, if we're not directly in contact with you, we are seeing what you're doing. So we're still there supporting you, just in a different kind of way. And sometimes it's easy to forget that, but those people they don't just disappear and never come back. It's like, no, they're still there. They just haven't been waving their pom-poms and stuff in front of me. But I wish you every success in the world with everything that you do. So anytime you want to, yeah, absolutely. Anytime you want to come back on, I love having guests come back. And if it needs to be just a 30-minute quick in and out, we can do that. Or if it's something else, Mark, I'm getting ready to tour, I'd love to come on and promote the tour and some of the updates that I have. You know how to get a hold of me. So
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great Black Friday if you're in the U.S. and or just a regular Friday if you're somewhere else, and the rest of the weekend. But thank you so much for tuning in, and stay safe out there. Bye, everybody.